Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Tina Jha with Discussion Today. On the show today, we are going to talk about the District Development Council elections in Jammu and Kashmir. The second phase of the District Development Council elections were held on Tuesday, the 1st of December. Polling was held in 43 constituencies in this second phase, 25 seats in the Kashmir division and 18 in Jammu. The first phase of polling, also for 43 seats, was held on Saturday, in which nearly 52% voter turnout was recorded. The DDC polls are being held to elect 280 members in 20 districts and are being held in 8 phases from 28th November to the 19th of December. The counting of votes will take place on the 22nd of December. It is the first election since the centre scrapped Article 370 that gave special status to Jammu and Kashmir in August last year and also bifurcated the state into 2 union territories. On Discussion Today, we will analyse the first ever District Development Council elections in Jammu and Kashmir. How has the response been in the 2 phases of polling that have concluded peacefully so far? And how it opens up a new democratic path in the troubled region. To discuss all these aspects and much more, we have with us 2 special guests. Let me introduce them to you. We are joined by Mr. S.P. Uwaid. He is former Director General of Police, Jammu and Kashmir. Welcome on Discussion Today, sir. And we're also joined by Aarti Tikku Singh. She's a senior journalist. Welcome to the show, ma'am. Mr. Uwaid, if I could begin the program with you. You know, the first democratic exercise in Jammu and Kashmir after the abrogation of Article 370. And compared to the previous elections, we see an overwhelming number of people turn up to vote. How do you look at the changing scenario in Jammu and Kashmir in terms of, people's participation, in terms of security in the region, and also in terms of peaceful conduct of elections?
It is a historic event. In fact, look at the percentage of polling on the first day, on Saturday, 52%. Which is almost like a national average.
Yes. And
even today, the response was overwhelming. And people of all ages, even as old as 90s plus and 100 plus, came out and voted. And there's a huge enthusiasm. The people are coming in huge numbers and casting their vote. In fact, let me mention here that amongst many other misuses of Article 370, the one of denial of basic right of grassroots democracy was done by the ruling establishment in Jammu and Kashmir by denying people the Panchayati Raj system, and it was implemented in whole of country. I recall from my childhood, and not only my 35 years of service, there were only panchayat ghars in the villages, but with its name, with virtually no activity. Today, there is a vibrant panchayati raj system coming up with the 3-tier system, and there was nothing at the district level completely. So it is a historic step. As far as the security is concerned, both the phases have gone very peacefully, and there's an elaborate arrangement of security across the state, and I'm sure the other phases will also pass up peacefully. People came in large numbers in spite of threat of the terrorists and such a cold weather. So it is heartening to see the response of the people.
In terms of security, sir, you've been in service in Jammu and Kashmir for several decades. How has the scenario changed in terms of security? Is it way better now than it was before August last year?
It is. In fact, if you see things on ground today, very few people are willing to join terrorist ranks because of their shortened lifespan. There are no takers for Band call. There's no Hurriyat is totally in disarray. There's no stone pelting taking place in any of the encounter sites, and there are no burial demonstrations with terrorists coming and firing in the air. all those things have become now things of the past. With the increased security the Hurriyat leadership now in totally either in detention or in disarray, and all these separatist events have actually become events of the past.
Okay, coming to you, Aarti Tikku Singh, the manner in which the people have responded to the District Development Council elections, there was nearly 52% turnout in the first phase. Until about 1 p.m. today, over 40% turnout was recorded. Does it mean that the people in the region were earlier living in fear? They were terrorized against participating in democratic processes. And now that the security situation is comparatively better, they're enthused about the electoral process, and they also look at it as a path to development?
Absolutely, yes. But I would like to say that there is something more significant than just the fact that Kashmiri people or people in Jammu, they're coming out to vote, not only defying terrorists, but I think they are defying the mainstream politicians who had created and painted a scenario of gloom and doom where there would have been bloodshed because of nullification of 370. That did not happen. You see, all the Gupkar Alliance members who until last year said that if Article 370 was nullified or abrogated in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, people will die on the streets, nobody will raise India's flag in J&K, nobody will swear by the Constitution of India. So that has been belied completely, that has been completely destroyed as a claim. What people are really saying, I think, we can interpret from the voting percentage that they are defiant not only against terrorists, but defiant also against people who were claiming that nobody will really believe or nobody will really show their confidence in the Constitution of India. That is number one. And I think the second aspect or the second interpretation of this voting percentage is that people of Jammu and Kashmir really believe in peace. They really believe in democracy. They believe in the institutions of India. They believe in the electoral process. They believe in choosing and electing their representatives so that their day-to-day life and their overall functioning goes back to a certain normalcy where it was earlier. I would say that that people of Jammu and Kashmir have voted in favor of Indian democracy. They have shown that they are fully with the government's decision, which it took last year on August 5th, 2019, which reorganized the state of Jammu and Kashmir into two union territories, one of Ladakh and one of Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. So many people who were claiming that, until there is statehood, there shouldn't be any elections. There were political parties of the Gupkar Alliance who were saying that until Article 370 is restored, they will not participate in elections. But at the same time, we saw that they have come to participate in DDC elections.
So after having boycotted several elections in the past, what do you think could have been the compelling reason for the Gupkar Alliance parties to actually come into the fray and contest these District Development Council elections?
Well, I would really say that they are fighting, they're participating in these elections for their own existence, for their own survival, because they realize that people no longer believe the rhetoric that they sold in J&K for the last 70 years, which was that Jammu and Kashmir is a special state, it has a special status, and no power on earth can abrogate Article 370. And I think people today know that they had been lying for the last 70 years. People today know that these are the political elites who made a lot of money in the last 70 years, and that money did not trickle down to ordinary common people in J&K. So I would say that Gupkar Alliance is really fighting for its survival. They realized that there is no going back on Article 370. There is no going back on the decision that the center took last year.
Okay.
So I think they realize that they will become irrelevant if they do not participate in Indian democracy and electoral process. That is why they have come out to participate in these elections.
Okay, Mr. Vaid, taking that question to you, Aarti Tikku Singh says that, the political parties who are part of the Gupkar alliance are today fighting a battle for their own survival. Do you agree that in the past, when they were in power, they did not allow grassroots democracy to strengthen in Jammu and Kashmir? And what kind of hope, what kind of promise do these elections now offer to the people of the Union Territory?
See, there is no doubt that grassroots democracy was denied to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. I have witnessed it during my career of last 35 years, and also being a resident of this place. As I was mentioning, there was virtually no panchayati system existing in J&K, and the only development body in the district used to be District Development Council, in which mostly manned by bureaucrats and the member parliament and ministers and MLA of that area, but no locally elected representatives of the district. Most of the schemes drawn in the state capital used to be implemented. Virtually no discussion at the local level of panchayat or block or at the district level. No participation of the local people. Now with this this right which was denied to J&K, which was when it was implemented in the rest of India, now this coming in J&K will not only get funding directly from the government of India, which was denied to the state of Jammu and Kashmir, which will propel the development in each village, in each block, in each district in a big way, and also will a new leadership will emerge from these villages, these blocks, and these districts. Otherwise, this was left only to elitist few families of Srinagar or those who used to become MLAs, 70, 80 people. Now it will not be the scenario like that. You will have a new leadership emerging of young people, young boys and girls coming through this panchayati system, and they will actively participate in the development process of the districts and blocks and the panchayats. And see, denial of this right actually compelled the youth to pick up guns, to resort to stone pelting, because they virtually found no advantages of the Indian democratic system, which was available to rest of India. So this is a huge step which will involve the youth of Kashmir Valley and Jammu in the democratic and development process of the state.
Okay. Taking the question of development to Aarti Tikku Singh once again, do you agree that the elections to the DDC will strengthen the grassroots democracy, which earlier was lacking? And will it ensure hassle-free development as well in the region? What are the kind of issues, what are the kind of development that the people at local level are expecting?
You see, one has to wonder why the governments in the state governments in Jammu and Kashmir did not hold panchayat elections in J&K. Why were there no local body elections in J&K earlier? The reason for that is that the select few families who were controlling power in J&K did not want the funds that were coming from the center to reach to the bottom of society, to all sections of society. In fact, they grabbed most of the funds that came from the center. In fact, 90% of the funds came from the center for a state, which hardly generated any revenue. So this is really fearful for these people who were holding on to power and who were controlling the finances of the state. This is really worrisome for them, because finally an ordinary panch, an ordinary sarpanch, an ordinary executive of a local body will now directly get funds from the center, and he will be able to decide what those funds should be allotted for in his own district. This is what really bothers the Abdullahs and the Muftis who've been in power for a long time in J&K, because what will really happen is that development which was concentrated on only the select few cities of Jammu and Kashmir until recently, it is going to trickle down. It is going to be distributed equally and equitably across districts. And that is going to really change the entire infrastructure, the kind of facilities big cities in India have, which many cities in J&K do not have still after 70 years of independence. If you move out or away from Srinagar city or Jammu city, you will notice that there is so much backwardness, there is so much discrimination against, for example, regions like Rajouri, Poonch, Doda, Badarwa, Kathua, Udhampur. They're really backward. There's hardly any infrastructure there. But the reason for that was that a select few people of the elite class of Kashmir, and I would say Jammu too, were holding on to all the finances and the funds that came from the center.
And they were far too distant from
there
reality.
is a lot of hope within J&K among different sections of society today that they will finally get to not only choose their destiny, but also shape their destiny.
Okay, so, if we talk about the larger political discourse, we've established it is going to open up, it's a new path to development. It's being seen as that. What are the new avenues you see opening up in Jammu and Kashmir as far as the larger political discourse in the Union Territory is concerned?
Absolutely, this is a very important question. You see, if you really look at the upper reaches of Jammu region, they are backward not only in terms of infrastructure, but also have been almost left out from the government services. They're left out from, say, private sector. You will see some amount of urbanization did bring jobs in, say, Jammu or Srinagar city. But the lack of urbanization in all these regions, as I mentioned, Rajouri, Poonch, Doda, Udhampur, Kathua, the private sector jobs are going to flow in now, because now we have a Land Amendment Act which has opened up the land of Jammu and Kashmir to the rest of India, as the rest of India was open to Jammu and Kashmir people until recently. So private sector investment will happen in areas which are secure, which do not have terror incidents, which do not have a history of violence. And I think that will generate a lot of jobs, a lot of employment. It will bring in institutions like we did see some amount of work done by the government in the last few years. We do have A-class institutions, at least the public sector ones, but the private sector institutions are yet to be built and yet to be set up in regions which did not see any development. That is one. And the second, I think, is the competition of the markets. You see, J&K had been left out of competition. You compare Jammu and Kashmir with Punjab or Haryana, the neighboring states of Himachal Pradesh. Jammu and Kashmir lost out on competition completely. It didn't have, marketable goods on any front in any of the industries where actually Jammu and Kashmir could have an advantage. So it even lost on fruit, for example. J&K's Jammu and Kashmir's apple used to be, it still is one of the delicious fruits of the country. But it lost on to Himachal because there was no competition. Himachal was open. J&K had many other issues because of insurgency, because of terror. So overall, I think as democratic process strengthens and the institution of democracy becomes stronger and takes deep roots in J&K, with private sector coming in, with sense of security coming in, not just on terror front, but also on economic front and finance front. I think a lot of changes will happen. The youth of Jammu and Kashmir will benefit hugely as private sector develops a market where people will find not just jobs but goods as well.
Definitely. So, Mr. Wade, development definitely will impact the region in a larger way and also impact the security apparatus. Because the people are participating in a democratic exercise now at will. They are not terrorized. There will be development. There will be employment. How do you see that impacting the security scenario in Jammu and Kashmir now?
I agree with Aarti ji. With now this new land laws, there's a possibility of private sector coming in a big way in Jammu and Kashmir, and a possibility of private sector jobs being available to the youth of Jammu and Kashmir. Then you can see more industrialization in this state. You will have if you look in Jammu and Kashmir, there is hardly any institution of the private sector worth its name. You don't find very good hospitals in Jammu and Kashmir. You don't find very good educational institutions in the private sector. So with these changes, I'm sure the industrialists of the country will pump in money, and a lot of economic activity is going to pick up, and good private institutions are coming, would be establishing their offices here, opening up a lot of opportunities for the youth. And this will also open up competition, as Aarti ji was saying, and competition obviously brings talent and better job opportunities for the talented youth. And security and development are interlinked. As development picks up, the security situation obviously has its impact, because when youth have nothing to do, they will only take to violent means of stone pelting, of indulging in crime, of taking to radicalization. So once the new generation of youth gets involved in the economic activity, becoming part of India's development scenario, obviously the security situation will improve. Pakistan will not be able to exploit a busy youth involved in the economic activity. They will not leave their economic activity and take to guns. So my feeling is, long term, it will have effect both on the security front as well as well.
We've spoken about how strengthening democratic setup could lead to development and, of course, a changing scenario, a positive outcome in Jammu and Kashmir. But what are the challenges that still remain?
See, challenges are, at first, at this moment, COVID situation needs to be controlled. It's unfortunately not very comfortable here in J&K. And once the situation normalizes, then we must pick up economic activity and the development process, which the people of Jammu and Kashmir have high hopes from the government of India and the Honorable Prime Minister. That activity must pick up. Then we need to ensure that the J&K's is alleged to have a lot of corruption allegations. We need to provide people a transparent administration and efficient administration, so that benefits percolate down to the last man. And the funding from Government of India is not restricted only to few hands in Srinagar and Jammu. It goes down to the last village. If you see once you move out of Jammu and Srinagar, The condition of villages and remote areas is pathetic,
Yes.
both in Jammu region and Kashmir. If you compare it with, let's say, Kerala or Punjab or Himachal or Haryana, the Jammu and Kashmir is left far, far behind. So, challenge would be to bring it par to the rest of the country.
Yes, so it's just the first step, a historic one that you just pointed out. Aarti Tikku Singh, one quick closing comment from you about the challenges and the way forward.
I think the challenge is still going to be Pakistan, because we cannot dismiss that offhand. We cannot dismiss the fact that Pakistan continues to send infiltrators into Jammu and Kashmir. We cannot overlook the fact that it just takes one gunman to disrupt a normalcy in Kashmir Valley still. We cannot ignore the fact that there still are people who are sympathizers of Zakir Musa, or for that matter, Burhan Wani in Kashmir. We have a small cell of ISIS there. We have a small cell of Al-Qaeda there. So we know that, these radical elements can disrupt the normalcy and peace in Kashmir.
Definitely.
But I think that is going to remain a challenge for the security forces. The good thing, however, is that the security forces in the last few years have shown toughness, not only in terms of fighting insurgents and fighting terrorists, but also on other fronts like banning JKLF or banning Jamaat-e-Islami. So a lot of things have happened in the last couple of years. Terror funding, I think, still is something that security forces and the entire establishment still needs to remain vigilant towards. I think that's something we need to really crack down on. I don't think we have done enough on that. Then
Okay.
I think I would say one biggest challenge, apart from, of course, I think development, I'm very hopeful. I think things will change and things will be better in the next few years. But I think one major challenge would be to de-radicalize youth in Kashmir Valley. I think the government is yet to figure out a program or a plan wherein they can mainstream the youth who were indoctrinated against the Indian state, against communities of the minority communities of Jammu and Kashmir. In the last 30 years, Kashmiri youth, for example, have had no experience of coexistence or communal harmony. I think that
Indeed,
is
and that
one
perhaps
thing
is going
that
to be the biggest challenge, I believe. I'm running short of time, so I'll have to wind up the program at that. Thank you very much, Aarti Tikku Singh and Mr. S.P. Vaid, for joining us on discussion today and putting things into perspective for us and for our viewers. Pleasure having you on the show. So with that, I'll have to call it a wrap on discussion today. You can watch our program on YouTube as well and send us your feedback and suggestions. Thank you very much for your time.